The gigantic government sucks. Pursuit of happiness radio is deluxe. Liberty and freedom will make you smile. The pursuit of happiness on your radio dial. Just as cheeseburgers and liberty fries, it's pursuit of happiness time.
Yeah, we're here. Greetings, kids. Don't we normally start these broadcasts with a terrible joke? Okay, here's one. A record for the largest polar bear dip was set over the weekend when 2,461 people jumped into a cold lake in Czech Republic. This also set the record for the greatest concentration of shriveled testicles in human history. Hi, everyone. Thanks for turning on your radio. You know who's with me this afternoon? I mean, you don't know, so I'll just tell you. My good buddy, Brandon Waltons, is stopping by from TexasScorecard.com. I love this. Here in the state of Texas, they want to change the name of the New York strip steak. And so it's kind of like, move over, Gulf of America, get ready for the Texas strip. We'll talk about it in just a little bit. But right now, let me roll up my sleeves because I want to talk about Ukrainians, Eastern Europe. I guess I'm kind of disorganized today, so I'm just going to jump into this and, you know, feel free to interrupt me in the comment section if you want. Oh, by the way, while we're live on the radio right now, we're also live streaming on the Tuba Views and the Book Faces and the X and the I think that's about it, actually. But anyway, if you're watching me right now, congratulations, you found me. So that's very cool. Like a lot of you, I don't like Putin. Do you like Putin? Nobody listening to or watching this is probably a fan of Vladimir. What would you like about Putin? He wrestles bears. I guess that's he does ninjutsu, shirtless. Apparently he had sex with Pamela Anderson once. According to Pamela Anderson, I don't know, say what you will about that. But all that being said, not a lot of redeeming qualities, especially if you're a fan of liberty. Russia is not a place where libertarians are generally. So remember they locked up a WNBA player for smoking pot. And she wasn't even the only one. There was that other guy, too, the educator. We just got him back. It's not about them. Russia bad, right? So as Americans, we often make this mistake of thinking that because there's a bad guy, there must be a good guy. And sure, I'm sure we all agree we're the good guys. I mean, obviously, America, what have we ever done wrong, right? Exactly. Yeah, wink, wink. But no, all that being said, okay, so Russia bad, Ukraine must be good, right? No, you lost me there. More often than not, if somebody wants to be a leader of a country, they're probably a megalomaniac, egomaniac, narcissistic, obsessed with the smell of their own farts, generally not somebody down to earth and humble if they want to be the leader of a country. And Zelensky is very much that, right? A lot of accusations have been made about this guy in his home country. He's a cocaine addict, and I don't know if that's true. There was a lot of sniffling on Friday at that meeting at the White House, and and that he himself is an egomaniac, and that he campaigned on a promise to get corruption out of his country. And it says corrupt as ever. That's one of the most corrupt countries on earth. We've given them hundreds of billions of dollars. They admit they don't know where a lot of that money ended up at. But like Tucker Carlson has pointed out, a lot of members of the Ukrainian oligarchy are now seen vacationing in some of the most expensive places in the world. So probably not a coincidence there. But all that being said, let's talk about the meeting on Friday and what has happened since then. Now, over the weekend, the liberal media, pop culture spent a lot of time telling you Donald Trump is a bad guy and he screwed over Ukraine and Ukraine's in dire straits and we screwed up the mineral rights deal as if that was something they even wanted to begin with, which is silly because now the news this morning is that all the huffing and puffing and chest pounding from over the weekend between Zelensky and Trump didn't matter. Zelensky still wants to reach a deal with Trump on mineral rights in exchange for some military support. So it didn't really make a difference. But obviously, we have to talk a little bit about what happened on Friday. On Friday, Zelensky went to go meet with Trump and J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. And they were supposed to have a lunch meeting. In fact, right down the hall from where all this was taking place, you could smell the food cooking. They were putting out plates and dinnerware and what have you. And I don't know what they were having. French dip sandwiches, probably something better than what they eat in Ukraine, odds are. And as all that's taken place, Zelensky and J.D. Vance and Trump and Marco Rubio sit down to have this meeting where, like a lot of you know, they were supposed to have a photo op and nothing more. And Zelensky decided he's better in front of a TV camera than the other 3 or 4 men in the room are. So he is going to take this opportunity to try to show off for the TV cameras, and he's going to have a negotiation with Trump in front of the TV cameras instead of in silence, in private. And this is probably a mistake that a lot of people make in their lives. Obviously, you're probably not negotiating the end of a war with your friends and your family members, but a lot of people do often have disagreements in public places when they should be having these arguments with their friends or their family or their business partners behind closed doors. And that was a mistake that Zelensky made. He was very aggressive, almost aggressive, like he was fueled by some kind of drug that inspired him to behave in a silly and irrational manner, like some kind of a stimulant or something. But no, I won't even go there with it. No, all that being said, so they begin this conversation where Zelensky wants to start negotiating in front of the TV cameras. Not a great idea. It starts off with this. Zelensky makes the point here that way back in 2014, Russia invaded Crimea, that southern peninsula there of Ukraine, and America didn't come and help him out. Here, I've got some audio. I even have some video of this happening. Let's listen to that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact
2015.
Yeah.
2014.
2014 and
2014. Yeah. So
I was not here. I was not here.
All right, let's pause it right there. Hold on. There's another video appeared on the screen. We'll get to that video in just a second. No, in 2014, you may recall, Trump was not the president. The president was a guy named Barack Hussein Obama. Some of you might like him, some of you might not. Pop culture loved Obama. He was never really good at his job, but didn't matter. It was easy for Barack Obama to be president because he was the first black president, and he was a cool, smooth-talking black guy, so the liberal media loved that. And when he screwed up, if you criticized him, what would they say about you? They would call you a racist. Yes, obviously. This ushered in a new era of woke politics where meritocracy didn't matter. The things that Martin Luther King Jr. said didn't matter. All you had to do to win a debate was call someone racist or sexist or homophobic or transphobic or midget-phobic or whatever it may be. That became the talking point of people on the left. And at the time, we seem to have forgotten how badly Barack Obama handled the invasion of Crimea. In fact, if you're just turning on your radio, why don't we put a pin in it right here? Hang on one second, quick break, and we will talk about it.
This is Kenny Webster's Pursuit of Happiness. Dig it?
You know, the beauty of this is I say we're going to break, but if you're watching me on social media, we're not really going to break. That's just how the radio listeners, they went to break. You didn't go to break. You're still here with me right now. But while I am queuing up some music here, the bumper music, as we call it in the biz, it's a good time to remind you guys, we have all kinds of new cool merch at ilovewj.com. And if you go to ilovewj.com and you purchase some of it, substantial portions of your purchase go to great causes like Sunshine Kids and Wheelchairs for Warriors. All that being said, let's continue. Stand by, everybody. There we go. Okay. A new study shows that having kids apparently slows down brain aging for parents. Do you believe that? For those of you that are parents out there, do you think that having children warded off dementia for you? Do you believe that's true? That's what they claim. The study says having kids slows down brain aging for parents, but it greatly speeds up liver aging from all the vodka consumption, presumably. Speaking of vodka, segue to that. Let's talk about Ukraine and Russia. If you're just getting back, we're talking about this meeting that they had on Friday between Zelensky and Trump. And at the time, Zelensky was trying to make this point that back in the day when you guys, Putin first invaded Crimea, you didn't do anything about it. And liberals in America ignore this part of the meeting. Liberals all over the weekend, if you watched Saturday Night Live or the Oscars, you noticed a lot of people were making fun of Trump for some comment he made about Zelensky's clothing. It's as if they didn't even watch it. The reality, if you actually watched the meeting with Zelensky and Trump, some journalist in the room insulted Zelensky's clothes, and then Trump defended him. I won't play the clip. We won't waste time with that. But the part of it that they ignore, while they reinvent certain parts of the media, the meeting, that is to say, one thing that they don't want to pay attention to is this point that Zelensky had, how way back in 2014, Putin invaded Crimea, and yet, for some reason, America didn't really help out. It's true. Way back in 2014, Russia invaded Crimea, and as Zelensky pointed out here, America's response was trying to cozy up to Russia at the time. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton came out, and she presented this reset button. I think I may even have a picture of it somewhere. Let me see if I could find it. It's the cutest thing. It was an actual photo of the Russian reset button. The Russian ambassador got together with Hillary Clinton, and they had this prop. Look at this. Let me put it up on the screen here for those of you watching me on social media. They had this prop, and it was an actual reset button, just a plastic yellow and red button, very cute to look at there. And they said, let's push the button and let's be friends again. That happened. And, of course, they became friends. This goes back quite a ways here. That was actually in 2009, the reset button appeared first on the scene. And then a short time later, Jen Psaki, before she was an MSNBC talk show host, before she was a spokesperson for Joe Biden, she was a spokesperson for the State Department. And Jen Psaki came out and she decided to put on a Russian hat, not just any Russian hat, a cute, adorable pink Russian hat. And she was widely mocked for it at the time. It's a pretty ridiculous thing for her to decide to wear because they wanted to show how friendly they were with Russia. This happened twice, once in 2019, once in 2014, after things became infinitely worse with Russia. And nobody in the liberal media seemed to mind. If you criticized them for this, the only thing that they would tell you was, hey, don't make fun of Barack Obama and his administration. They're doing a good job. You're just doing that because you hate blacks. At the time, Mitt Romney said the biggest threat he thought we had globally was Russia. They made fun of Mitt Romney for making that point. Barack Obama said, take your foreign policy and go back to the 1980s, you silly moron. You're so stupid. Obama gave Romney the 80s called line to the media, and Biden said Romney's Cold War mentality was antiquated, it was outdated, it was silly and dumb. And people in the liberal media said, yay, that's so great. Obama's right. Mitt Romney's a dum-dum. He thinks we need to worry about Russia. And, of course, as all this was happening, Putin and the Russian military actually shot down a Malaysian passenger jet. There were no consequences for this. Nobody did anything. Nobody suggested that Barack Obama was a Putin puppet or that Barack Obama needed a Russian collusion. What the heck's going on? Did Russia get Barack Obama elected? Nothing. 3 years were not spent in Congress proving or disproving that Barack Obama once rented out a hotel room in Moscow where he got hookers to relieve themselves on a mattress that his predecessor had slept on. None of that ever happened. There was the golden shower gate, all the ridiculous things we accused Donald Trump of doing. None of that ever happened with Barack Obama. Of course not. And Obama actually told Medvedev, the ambassador to Russia at the time, that after the election ended, he would have flexibility. It was a hot mic moment. He said, you just wait till after I beat Mitt Romney in this election, and then I'll have a lot more flexibility. America and Russia, we'll get real chummy with each other. Don't worry, that'll happen. And so Russia and Putin, bullying around the Obama administration, eventually went in and they invaded Crimea. Nothing happened to them. And of course, now the Ukrainian war is happening. And for some reason, this is all Trump's fault, even though this problem was in the making way before Trump even announced he was running for president in 2016. Now, it gets really interesting here because to those of you that don't really understand the complexity and the nuances of all this, and don't feel bad, who could blame you? This problem that we're having right now with Russia, it goes way back. It goes back to the 1990s when Bill Clinton took over our federal government, and for the first time ever in the history of the nation, we had the opportunity to get rid of NATO. But why would we still need NATO? The Soviet Union didn't exist anymore. And lo and behold, interestingly enough, at the time, Bill Clinton decided not to do it. And that's sort of where this history lesson about why we knew this invasion of Ukraine would be happening 20, 30 years before it actually took place really begins. Rather than having me explain it to you, I'll let this old guy in a leather chair tell you about it.
This is not an attack by Putin on Ukraine in the way that we are told every day. This started in 1990, February 9th, 1990. James Baker III, our Secretary of State, said to Mikhail Gorbachev, NATO will not move 1 inch eastward if you agree to German unification, basically ending World War II. And Gorbachev said, that's very important. Yes, NATO doesn't move, and we agreed to German unification.
Okay.
The U.S. then cheated on this, already starting in 1994.
Bill Clinton.
When Clinton signed off on basically a plan to expand NATO all the way to Ukraine. This is when the so-called neocons took power.
Bill Clinton.
And Clinton was the first agent of this.
I would say the second, but fine, okay.
The expansion of NATO started in 1999 with Poland, Hungary, and Czech Republic. At that point, Russia didn't much care. There was no border other than with the Königsberg, but other than that, there was no direct threat. Then the U.S. led the bombing of Serbia in 1999. That was bad, by the way, because that was a use of NATO to bomb a European capital, Belgrade, 78 straight days to break the country apart. The Russians didn't like that very much. But Putin became president, they swallowed it, they complained, but even Putin started out pro-European, pro-American, actually asked maybe we should join NATO when there was still the idea of some kind of mutually respectful relationship.
Wow.
Then 9/11 came, then came Afghanistan, and the Russians said, yeah, we'll support you. We understand to root out terror.
Sure.
But then came 2 other decisive actions. In 2002, the United States unilaterally walked out of the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. This was probably the most decisive event, never discussed in this context. But what it did was trigger the U.S. putting in missile systems in Eastern Europe that Russia views as a dire, direct threat. In 2004-05, we engaged in a soft regime change operation in Ukraine. But in 2009, Yanukovych won the election and he became president, and in 2010 on the basis of neutrality for Ukraine. That calmed things down because the U.S. was pushing NATO, but the people of Ukraine on the opinion polls didn't even want to be in NATO. They knew that the country is divided between ethnic Ukrainian, ethnic Russian. What do we want with this? We want to stay away from your problems. So in February 22nd, 2014, the United States participated actively in the overthrow of Yanukovych.
Right.
A typical U.S. regime change operation, have no doubt about it.
CIA.
And the Russians did us a favor. They intercepted a really ugly call between Victoria Nuland, my colleague at Columbia University now, between her and the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Jeffrey Piat, who's a senior State Department official till today. And they talked about regime change.
This is before, right?
They said, who's going to be the next government? All of this is to say, the U.S. then said, okay, now NATO's really going to enlarge. And Putin kept saying, stop. You promised no NATO enlargement. It's been, by the way, I forgot to mention, in 2004, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, 7 more countries in the not 1 inch eastward. And then, okay, it's a long story, but
I'm going to pause it right there. A lot of you are aware of the fact that they're not currently having elections in Ukraine. A lot of you may be aware of the fact that, well, there are excuses. Well, because there's a war going on. It's like, come on, guys. We had elections during the Civil War. We have elections very rarely does a nation stop having elections just because a war is going on. And yes, I'm aware of the fact that Britain during World War II took a break from elections during World War. Okay, fine. Over the weekend, liberal media journalists, pundits, activists, propagandists masquerading as members of the media took to TV around the country and they compared Zelensky to some suspiciously prestigious people I never would have compared him to, one of whom was Jesus. I'll get to that in a minute. But the common comparison that I heard over the weekend was to Churchill. We heard a lot of people compare Zelensky to Churchill. Now, I want you to think about what that comparison entails. It's a silly, stupid comparison, right? But we always have to compare everything to World War II. Everything has to be Nazis this. Those are the Nazis. These are the good guys. That's how American political discourse is. Everything has to be reduced to an analogy about World War II. And so if we must have an analogy about World War II right now, which I wouldn't agree with doing, let's pick at the scab a little bit. Let's pick at that pussy scab. What does that mean? If Churchill is Zelensky, who is Hitler? It's Putin, right? Of course. I mean, obviously, this is their analogy. It's not mine. If in their analogy, if Zelensky is Churchill, Putin must be Hitler. Now, remember what they're suggesting here is that, well, we have to deal with this like what we did during World War II. Well, what did we do during World War II? We invaded Germany. We took Hitler out of power. Do you guys want to see boots on the ground right now in Moscow? Do you want to see young American people strapping on their backpacks and their combat boots and charging into the streets of Moscow for a land war with the Russians? Whether the people on the left realize it or not, whether the people at the Grammys or the Oscars or Saturday Night Live over the weekend realizes it or not, that is what they're advocating for. Because none of them actually understand the thought process behind the people that are feeding them the talking points. The people that are feeding them the talking points want to overthrow Russia. Remember, Joe Biden's accidentally said this out loud before. Look that one up if you don't. I don't have the soundbite in front of me, but he certainly has said it. We need to take Putin out of power. Remember when Biden, and then immediately walked it back a day later. That's weird. You no longer feel that? No, I misspoke. He misspoke a lot. There was a lot of misspeaking from Joe Biden, but I think that's one time when he didn't misspeak. I think he was telling the truth. Now, when you consider the fact that this guy wants, David Axelrod, for example. David Axelrod was one of Barack Obama's chief strategists, and he's made this point many times. Something must be done. We must take out Hitler. Hitler and Zelensky and Putin. It's so obvious what's taking place here. Winston Churchill and Hitler. Zelensky and Putin. It's like, okay, we have Americans, young Americans. People like Harry Sison, for those of you that are on Twitter or X or social media, you know who this is. He's a young kid on Twitter, X, and he gets paid to tweet for the Democrat Party. He's not the only one. There's a lot of them. But he's one of them. And he's one of these people constantly saying, yeah, let's support Ukraine, fight for Ukraine. Ukraine is taking mercenaries right now and paying them with American money. I can't wrap my mind around the fact that there are young Americans advocating for more war in Ukraine while simultaneously completely ignoring the fact you're the people that are going to get drafted. If we're to invade the streets of Moscow, if we're to go into Russia and take Putin out, you're the very person. You people in your young 20s are the very people that are going to have to stop tweeting, pick up a rifle, learn how to operate a drone, fly overseas to Eastern Europe, eat room temperature tomato soup or whatever horrible food they eat over there, and go take on Putin. Do you think Harry Sison and the other Zoomers that tweet for the Democrats realize that when they speak out loud?
You've got Kenny Webster's Pursuit of Happiness on KPRC 950.
I am going to be going to South Louisiana to do a couple of comedy shows with Chad Prather and Jesse Payton the weekend of April 20th. If you're not, April 20th this year is on a Sunday. Don't ask me why I committed that to memory, but it is. And we're not celebrating Hitler's birthday or anything like that. But that would mean that Friday would be the 18th and Saturday would be the 19th. And yours truly, I'm going to be in, New Orleans on Friday night. There's a link to it on my X account. I'm hosting. I'll probably do about 15 or 20 minutes worth of stand-up. And then Chad Prather's the headliner. Jesse Payton is the featured act. It's Jesse Payton's show. He's taking us all on the road together. He's calling it The Right Side of Comedy. I love Jesse is my brother, and Chad is also a good friend. I love both of those guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. I really hope you guys are there. And you could purchase tickets now. I guarantee this sells out. If you know you're not doing anything 420 weekend and you're going to be anywhere near New Orleans or Hattiesburg, definitely buy tickets while they're available. Those will sell out. But anyway, I got to run. I love you all. We'll be back bright and early tomorrow morning for more of What You Bought a Radio For. Do me a solid. If you like my videos or any of the content we put on social media, click the share button or retweet or whatever it may be. It's how we promote this stuff. You get how social media works. We appreciate the support. We appreciate the love. If you like this video, retweet it. And I charge nothing for this. But if you do want to buy something, go to ilovewj.com and buy some of our really cool merch. Or go to